everybody, welcome to the Meet Your Future podcast. Today we'll be talking to Sonya Holmes, who is Head of HR at Fortem, which is a property services company. My name is Michelle Wheeler and I'm the Enterprise Coordinator for Wigan. Sonya, hi, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. Would you like first to introduce yourself and give a brief overview of your role?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name's Sonya Holmes. As you said, I'm the Head of HR for Fortem. I joined the company in 2006 as a specialist HR management trainee, and before that I had a background in recruitment and finance. So my role really is to oversee the day-to-day of HR within the business, which includes supporting employees and managers with the day-to-day things like questions, policies, procedures, also talent management and making sure we're developing our people for the opportunities of the future and supporting and developing them to achieve their full potential. We've got a number of ways that we do this. We bring in the right people externally through our management trainee scheme and apprentice schemes. And we develop our internal people through programmes that we run like Fortem Advance, where we train our tradespeople to become supervisors, and Fortem Pathways, where we make sure that all employees have got visibility of what development routes they can take and how they can progress in the business. A lot of my role is focused on what we call employee engagement and culture, and supporting the business to demonstrate our values as their behaviours. So we've built our business on are passionate and take pride in everything that they do. And we have core values and behaviours. And one of the most important parts of my role is to ensure that they're brought to life and they're more than just a poster. So our values don't change. Our values are solid, but the way that we embed them and the way that we support people to understand how they translate into action is continually developing. And it's really important that our values do underpin the way that our people behave. My role is also about aligning our reward and recognition to our values and ensuring we've got different ways of recognising people outside of just financial rewards. So training our managers to understand the value of getting to know their people and thanking them and showing them that they're valued by listening to their ideas and their opinions. And that's as well as business-wide events and awards. We have above and beyond awards, cultural ambassador awards, and these are just as important as the financial recognition. There's another key part of my role, which is called TUPE. And as a business, when we win new work, we inherit a workforce under a piece of legislation called TUPE, and that protects employees' rights when the provision of a service changes hands. So we look at this as a great opportunity to bring new people into the business.
Fantastic. That's a really great overview of HR, and it's interesting to hear how much emphasis you place on reward and recognition and kind of management of talent. Could you talk a little bit about the overall feeling of the sort of business community in property services and maybe across HR as well over the past few months since COVID has sort of hit us all?
I think the overall feeling of the business community is a feeling of resilience. A lot was learnt from the first lockdown, and technology was used out of necessity, but it's now really being embraced. And I think the move to a more agile way of working has been embraced to try and move the sector forwards. The byproduct of minimising contact has been the use of technology. We're working from home, changing our operational practices, and we're seeing that delivery can continue without affecting customer satisfaction working in that way. So there's not been the same move to an emergency-only service that we saw in some instances with the first lockdown. There's a feeling of greater confidence that we can continue to deliver without compromising safety or standards, and keeping customer satisfaction high. There's definitely a more collaborative feel in the sector. We've got online forums with 60 or 70 different organisations that are sharing their learning, their experiences, looking at data and trends and working together to share the knowledge. And there's also an increase in just the amount of forums that there are online actually to do that. And that collaboration, I think, definitely extends to clients, contractors and supply chain. There's been much more connectivity and a joint approach to the contingency planning that's had to be done, and business continuity plans. So it really has felt like the challenge has been a shared challenge.
That's great. That's really positive to hear, and I'm sure that all our careers leaders and sort of teachers listening will appreciate that. Turning technology from kind of a sort of extra to an absolute essential, and it's interesting to hear how. I mean, obviously with your work, you've got properties and developments across the country that you're supporting. So having to have that sense of an overview as well as a kind of being able to work at individual levels and individual sites, and how technology kind of feeds into that. So since the pandemic began, have you seen anything surprising? Any sort of success stories or opportunities across the sector?
I think anything surprising or any success stories and opportunities, the agility and resilience of people to adapt has been remarkable. Everything changed for people at the beginning of this year in a way that we would never ever have imagined last year. There's much more of a collective consciousness with people worried about people, their neighbours, their colleagues, and offering to help people that need it. I think people have organised really quickly in work and out of work to help each other in the community, to do practical things to help people if they got enough shopping, you know, if they got what they need every day to get by. But then are they lonely? Have they got company? Do they need somebody to talk to? And people are organising themselves at work. People are doing that to look after both each other and tenants and to identify people who are vulnerable and who need help. And we've got loads of examples of our tradespeople. Our tradespeople have worked since the first lockdown. So we didn't stop working as essential workers. And I think it was a lot tougher for them in the first lockdown than it was this time. We've got that in our knowledge bank now of what we need to do. But there's so many stories of them going above and beyond to help people. And on the one hand, that is part of their role. Looking after tenants in properties is part of their job. But they've really spent their own time actually making sure that people are looked after. We've got some examples. For example, we had a guy go to a leak in a property towards the end of the day that looked when it came through like a fairly simple job, but when they got there, it was actually going to be a really big job to fix. It wasn't an emergency, but it did need to be made safe. But there was a vulnerable tenant in there who was anxious. And so rather than book the job back in for the next day, they just phoned the other guys that were on their patch. They got a whole group of them over there, not through their supervisor. They didn't call it in, but they were just determined that they were going to fix it. And they worked till 10 o'clock to do it. They didn't mention overtime. They didn't ask for anything, but they wanted to help that person. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people genuinely caring about each other.
That's really great to hear. And it kind of feeds back to the stuff you were saying at the start about your values and how you kind of bring people on. That's a really lovely story. Have you seen kind of any other trends maybe across the sector more broadly, or in sort of property or construction development?
I'm trying to think what trends. I think the kind of things, if you can cut and shut this, because I'm thinking.
No.
The kind of trends that we saw initially were from clients who moved to emergencies only.
Right.
With the nervousness of the first lockdown and exactly what the regulations were and what was expected of people, I think that was one of the biggest trends. But actually that moved on quite quickly into trying to open up those services to as many people as needed them. And that was, I think, the most difficult part of the first few weeks. So that trend actually ties into my earlier answer of confidence.
Yeah.
Increased confidence that, you know, we're comfortable in how we're operating and what we should be doing.
Yep. Yeah, we've got that sense of purpose and direction, I guess, as well. Fab, thank you. So moving on, do you think, in your opinion, that kind of most businesses in your sector are in a position where they could support schools in terms of either virtual offers or more hands-on support?
Yeah.
Okay, that's positive, great.
I genuinely do. I think the majority of people want to support schools because I think generally people want to support young people. And that's quite a natural thing to want to do, to nurture and develop people and to support them. So yeah, most definitely. I think it's whether they have the capacity to do it at the moment and whether it's being prioritised at the moment. One of our strategic aims since our business started was to leave a legacy. That's something we talk about a lot in Fortum, leaving a legacy in the communities that we work with. So it's really important to us, and people are passionate about it. It's really important that we do meet those commitments, and it means a lot to us. And it's one of the reasons we invested in the 2 academies that we've got. We've got an academy in Birmingham and an academy in Rotherham for our own employees and for local communities. But I think the challenge is whether businesses are driven by their contract targets and what they have to deliver along the social value lines, and then it can become something secondary and something that's about box ticking rather than prioritised and really driven by the passion to expand the opportunities for young people. So the will is there, but it's making sure that it is priority rather than a nice to do.
Yeah, so maybe it's the sort of, it's for careers leaders and perhaps SLTs and schools to kind of think about the way they pitch and how to how to kind of not capitalise necessarily, but align with values of companies and make sure that those things fit together.
Yeah, I think that would be a great approach.
So finally, if you were, imagine a world where you weren't in HR and you were working in a school as a careers leader, but you didn't know where to begin, what would be your top tips for building a successful business network at a school?
So my top tip primarily would be to contact Career and Enterprise and get a careers enterprise advisor.
Thanks.
So they will support your school and set the benchmarks and link you with an advisor who can help and advise on how to open the doors. They help understand the range of opportunity. For example, we come within construction and facilities management, which typically conjures up images of tradespeople, but we've got a really wide range from customer and community, HR, finance, sustainability, business support. There's a lot of things in there, and it's really important to understand, for young people to understand the range of things available and what then excites them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they can think where their skills are aligned and just what they're naturally drawn to. That's how you pique your interest, isn't it? What stands out for me? So they'll help link with businesses that can offer work experience, training programs, and a taste of what skills are needed for work, and the experience of a work environment. Our head of customer and community, Lee Garbutt, is an enterprise advisor. He worked with Abbey School in Rotherham, which is a school for children with learning disabilities, and she helped them set up a social enterprise not-for-profit. What they did was set up an area of the school that was disused, and they turned it into a high street. So it's a long corridor with lots of rooms coming off it. And they turned it up into a high street called Steam Street, so steam. And each room was a different business. So for one of the rooms, the example was called Steambucks. So it was their coffee shop, which was fitted out as a cafe. So the pupils went through an interview process, they applied for the role that they wanted, and they either got a role at the end of it or they didn't. The cafe was opened up to the public, so they really learned the job. They learned how to serve, customer service skills, and the daily discipline of running a cafe successfully, how to open it, keep track of the take-ins, clean, close up. So it was a really great, safe, live learning environment. They even got paid in credits, which they could put towards a variety of things. And the cafe then developed from that into an external catering service, where they would arrange lunch and deliveries for local businesses, and any profits that they made were then invested back into the social enterprise not-for-profit. So it was a brilliant initiative, absolutely brilliant, I think, for everybody involved. We got to really teach live skills to people, and they got the rewards of it and saw the payback for their efforts. And a careers enterprise advisor will really help understand what you're trying to achieve. So it's important that it is bespoke for your school and what you want.
Fantastic. What a great example. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Well done, Abbey School in Rotherham. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Sonya. I've just realised that there is a man mowing the lawn outside. So hopefully everyone will be able to hear the recording all the way through. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and thanks very much for your insights.